of me. You haven't requested that I should do so, but I'm doing it because I hear that even on social media, people are asking, should we have this day? Should we have this event? Should we have this pomp? There's no pomp and what. It's about a president, head of state, addressing after, by the way, this event is convened by him. He calls, he requests the chair of the NCOP and the speaker to bring together members of parliament into a joint sitting. Absolutely. Where he addresses us. Now, there is no other day then which you will find in our calendar which says President calls a joint sitting to address South African people about the program of action of government. He can only do that through statements, questions, and so on. But this time, it's about what it is that we've achieved and where are we going. How is the money that's going to be allocated to the different departments of government? How is it going to be spent by those government departments? Because thorough preparations have been done through the mahutlas to discuss what the priorities should be.
Indeed. Madam Speaker, talking about the priorities for the year ahead, we know that this year is the final year as we conclude the sixth dispensation. In fact, this is the final full year that we will have before we go into the elections. How important is this year's State of the Nation address, particularly in terms of just reflecting on what has been achieved by, through the State of the Nation, the commitments that have been made by the President since 2019 to where we are right now? So this is one of those State of the Nation addresses where it's the last one before, the second last one before we go into the elections. Talk to us about the importance of reflecting not only on last year's commitments, but also reflecting on the work that has been done for the entire sixth dispensation.
Well, it's very important, Sibonelo, to do that because, remember, you have a 5-year program. You have a 5-year plan.
Indeed.
And that is allocated, it has a budget allocation over the years, right? So it's important for us, and I'm sure this is what government has been doing, which is at the mahutlas, both the ruling party, the hutla, and the government, the hutla, that everybody brings to the table that which has been done in implementing commitments which we made over a 5-year plan. Yes, we have yearly plans, but we do have that 5-year plan which we set ourselves to implement and achieve over a 5-year period, and it is budgeted for. And therefore, it's like, for me, it's about giving a report back to South Africans. It's about acknowledging where there are mistakes which have been committed, acknowledging that those mistakes have been committed. If there are things we could not do, because there was some whatever. But this is a moment where you seize the moment, you clarify things to people, you explain why it has not happened, and what it is that we are going to correct the mistakes which we have committed in the previous years. For me, people will say, this year is the last lap towards an election. Correct, it is towards an election. Parties will be competing for space and for power. Good, but yes, that competition for space, competition for power, to take power and rule a country, we should also never forget that we are contesting for power because we have a program of bettering the lives of the South African people. That's what politics are about. They are about what it is that I can do for the South African nation. And of course, it will not always be 100%. Sometimes it may not even be 50%. achievements of of the goals you have set for yourself. But what's important is your ability to go back, acknowledge, do an analysis, and say to people, we know we've failed you here, but we nonetheless are still committed that even in the coming years or in the coming session of Parliament administration, we will be able to resolve these issues.
Indeed, Madam Speaker, you talk about reflecting on the work that has been done since 2019, but importantly, if we're talking about mistakes and reflecting on some of the weaknesses, some of the priorities probably that would not have had, that we wouldn't have had time to effectively implement. We also must bear in mind the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the global economy and how that has disrupted our development trajectory over the last 5 years. So obviously that comes into context as well. But talk to us a little bit more about how Parliament will begin to reposition its oversight agenda to make sure that it begins to consolidate through oversight to ensure that the executive is able to implement some of those outstanding key priorities that will have that are expected to have a major impact in the lives of ordinary South Africans, particularly from a legacy perspective, and in ensuring that as we conclude the sixth dispensation, we must have key deliverables and things that we can say, this is what we have delivered for the people of South Africa.
We have no choice, Sibonelo. We really have no choice. First, let me start with the Zondo Commission report, the state capture report, which talks to some of the things which we could have done better as Parliament, which we were not able to do. Where the judge actually raises a question as to where was Parliament when some of the things happened, right? So what that basically means, that question actually challenges us as Parliament to reflect on what it is that we could have done better to make sure that even here, there isn't just monitoring and evaluation in government, that we should be talking about also monitoring and evaluation of our own performance as portfolio committees of Parliament, monitoring and evaluation of the performance of the members of Parliament in our own constituencies, because that's how we are going to get information. I mean, if you are going to be told that X number of schools are still built of mud, there's still no ablution facilities, it is the responsibility of parliamentary committees to engage with the departments, to assist as a way of ensuring that bureaucrats in those government departments actually do, because sometimes it won't always be the member of the executive. Sometimes you'll find that the executive is not even aware that a particular school or even should have had ablution facilities and that it has not been done. So for me, the monitoring and evaluation should be both at the level of the executive. Yes, we have an oversight role, but we too need to monitor ourselves, our own performance as members of Parliament. So we have to strengthen the performance of the oversight committees of Parliament and intensify our oversight function. Equally, the public participation process. It's very important that even with the pieces of legislation that we are dealing with now, for instance, such as the Electoral Amendment Bill, that we educate our people so that people understand the implications of passing that piece of legislation and what it means for them. Not what it means for the debates in Parliament, but what it means for me as an ordinary South African when we pass this piece of legislation.
Madam Speaker, there's also a lot of information going around in the media about the intention of some political parties to disrupt the proceedings. Talk to us about the systems that have been put in place for the joint sitting to ensure that this joint sitting, the State of the Nation address, runs smoothly without any disruptions. Of course, South Africans are waiting with bated breath to hear from the President. So what systems have been put in place to ensure that there are no disruptions?
You know, Sibonelo, there's nothing new you can do. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. What is important is that we've taken an oath, right, as members of parliament. And that oath binds us to our constitution, right? That oath binds us to the rules of parliament which are developed by us MPs and adopted by us MPs, right? And therefore, we have an obligation, right, to comply with the rules of parliament. And every member of parliament, just as you step into parliament, after you're swearing in as a member, the first thing you are given is a copy of the Constitution and a copy of the rules of parliament. So members may not necessarily be knowledgeable about some of the rules contained in that rule book, but they are basic and fundamental rules which you need to know as a member that you have an obligation to comply with. Now, what I can say through you is to members of parliament, I've heard the threats. I've heard that there'll be no SONA, but I want to assure South Africans through you that there will be a SONA. There will be a state of the nation because, as I've said earlier on, it's a very rare state occasion of parliament. And therefore, there is no way in which we can say, because as South Africans we have challenges. As South Africans we have our own different political views on some of these matters. No matter the different political views, of course, it's part of the constitutional provisions of South Africa that there will be diversity of views. But in our diversity, we need to understand and have a sense of occasion of those events which must unify us, which must bring us together in order to ensure this accountability. Now, if you're going to say, I don't want to listen to what they have to say because I'm unhappy with A, B, C, D, and E, the only way in which you can even exercise that oversight is by allowing for the State of the Nation address. And then there'll be an opportunity for 2 days afterwards where members of parliament will express themselves on the State of the Nation address. So I don't understand what the issue is, but I can only conclude that your challenges, we bring them to parliament. We are here, we are politicians, and we have all the time and the opportunity to engage on these matters, if only to take our country and our nation forward.
Madam Speaker, thank you so much for making the time to be with us this morning.
Thank you.
And thank you for laying our fears to rest, and also just to ensure that, making sure that everything is in place for this evening's State of the Nation address.
Sibonile, I would want to avoid an enforcement of the rules. I would like people to appreciate that these are rules which must be complied with, which we adopted. But if it means enforcing the rules, then the rules will be enforced. But I would like to make a plea through you that members should ensure that we maintain the decorum of the House. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for making the time. We wish you the best of luck. We're sure that this evening's State of the Nation address will run smoothly as you put all the systems in place. That was the Speaker of the National Assembly, Meno Siviwe Mapisa Ngakula, who was just basically taking us through all of the preparations that have gone on, that have been put in place behind the scenes to ensure that everything is in place for the nation to receive this all-important State of the Nation address in this final year of the 6th dispensation. Do stay tuned.
This book, our Constitution, protects our society and empowers us to govern. The Protea leaves are us, the people, who freely elect our voices in Parliament. The drum calls the people of Parliament, through whom we govern together. And the sun is our country, healing our past, improving our lives, and energizing our potential. Together, our Constitution, our people, our parliament, and our country are building our great South African nation. Parliament TV, channel 408 on DSTV. Building our great South African nation together.
The Parliament of the Republic of South Africa consists of two houses, the National Assembly as well as the National Council of Provinces. The National Council of Provinces, or NCOP for short, is constitutionally mandated to ensure that provincial interests are taken into account in the national sphere of government.
The NCOP is uniquely placed to reflect the diversity of our society and to synthesize the experience of those spheres of government charged with the great bulk of the task of implementing the country's national program of fundamental change, close quote.
This is done through participation in the national legislative process and by providing a national forum for consideration of issues affecting provinces. The NCOP also ensures that local government concerns are represented at the highest level. The NCOP consists of 9 provincial delegations nominated by the provincial legislatures and a delegation from the South African Local Government Association, or SALGA for short. Each provincial delegation has 10 members made up of 4 special delegates drawn from the provincial legislature, including the Premier of the province or a person designated by the Premier as head of the delegation. These delegates may change from time to time. In addition to that, there are also 6 permanent delegates. This means every province is equally represented in the NCOP. Similar to its counterpart, the NCOP has office bearers who are responsible for overseeing the duties of the House. Chairperson and 2 deputy chairpersons manage the work of the NCOP and preside over debates, making sure that delegates can speak freely while remaining within the rules. Of the 2 deputy chairpersons, one is a permanent deputy chairperson who is elected for 5 years, while provincial premiers take turns being deputy chairpersons for a year. A provincial whip organizes the work of each provincial delegation. Parties with at least 7 permanent delegates and who do not have members functioning as provincial whips are also entitled to a party whip. The NCOP considers, passes, amends, proposes amendments to, or rejects legislation. It must consider all national bills. The NCOP has oversight of the executive within its role as the representative of the provinces. The NCOP may require a cabinet member, an official in the national government or a provincial government to attend a meeting of the council or a committee of the council. The NCOP also conducts oversight visits to the communities in order to ensure that they get direct information on the needs and challenges of the people. All these efforts to make your future work better.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're still watching Parliament TV on DSTV channel 408. Now, the National Council of Provinces, under the leadership of the chairperson of the Council, Ndate Amos Masondo, is of course responsible for ensuring that the interests of provinces are taken into account in the national sphere of government. The NCOP plays a very unique role in ensuring that the 3 spheres of government work together to achieve their unique objectives without encroaching in each other's jurisdiction. Ndate Masondo is here with us this morning to talk to us not only about the state of readiness to convene this evening's all-important State of the Nation address, but also to talk to us about the National Council of Provinces mandate and how that will also find expression in the commitments that the President will be speaking to this evening. Chairperson, welcome to the platform and welcome to the show, and thank you very much for being with us this morning.
To you and to all the viewers.
Wonderful. Church, just by way of introducing our conversation, talk to us about the mandate of the National Council of Provinces, because a lot of times people focus so much on the National Assembly that they often don't think about the fact that the State of the Nation is actually a joint sitting of the two houses of Parliament. So talk to us about the important mandate that is carried by the National Council of Provinces under your leadership.
Parliament of South Africa is constituted of two houses.
Indeed.
National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces. And the Parliament here, like legislatures elsewhere in the world, are responsible for lawmaking, ensuring accountability, and overall also ensuring that, amongst others, we deal with issues of parliamentary diplomacy. What distinguishes the National Council of Provinces from the National Assembly is the fact that our focus is really on ensuring that provincial interests are taken into account when it comes to national government. We also, of course, play a role in ensuring that the voice of local government is also taken into account and into cognizance.
Absolutely.
But in the main, we seek to ensure that that voice, that provincial voice, is heard and is not ignored at national government level.
Chairperson, when we reflect on the importance of intergovernmental relations and how important coordinating the three spheres of government is, particularly for policy implementation, the issue of intergovernmental relations and, of course, coordination has been cited not only by the National Planning Commission and a lot of other academics out there as a key challenge. Of course, the National Council of Provinces has got a number of important flagship programs such as Taking Parliament to the People, your Provincial Week, and so forth. How effective have those programs been in terms of making sure that we give better expression as an NCOP to the whole notion of intergovernmental relations and addressing issues that require particularly three-sphere coordination, which obviously it is an issue, it is a responsibility that falls squarely within the mandate of the National Council of Provinces?
Well, the Constitution provides for the need for collaboration across all spheres of government. It also provides for just articulating the interconnectedness of government structures, and seeks to ensure that overall, when there are challenges that arise, the different spheres of government do not take one another or each other into the courts, but rather that a solution is sought by engaging, by discussion, and by really seeking to find mutually acceptable solutions. So negotiate, and arrive at a settlement. That is broadly the approach. So we have government weeks, we have provincial weeks, taking government to the people in an ongoing way. This really seeks to ensure that the umbilical cord and that connection between the people and government is not lost, and offers a platform to local people to raise a whole range of challenges that face them on a day-to-day basis. So our debates tend not to be abstract, but to be really derived from actual experiences of people on the ground. So we do this all the time, and as you know, of course, the challenges are many. Whether it's been in relation to the economy that's not growing as expected, to unemployment, inequality, poverty, corruption and crime, and a whole range of these kinds of issues. But the sharpness, the sensitive nature of the issue in a particular locality, amongst a particular people and so on, will differ from time to time and in terms of emphasis. For instance, if you go to Zone 8 in Soweto, one of the critical issues that's facing the people there is the question of electricity. And some communities have not had electricity for over a year and so on. So in an ongoing way, the issues are getting addressed, but clearly there are gaps, and therefore these issues arise. The point I'm really making is that the need to grapple with challenges as they manifest themselves in any particular community at any point in time is critical.
Absolutely, Chair. So when we're talking about just emphasizing the role of the National Council of Provinces, that is actually the house that is closest to the people, because that is the house that is able to engage at a provincial, at a district, and at a local level, engaging on issues, those challenges, those unique challenges that are faced by ordinary South Africans. Talk to us about how the NCOP ensures that it processes the issues that are being raised, because obviously we know that through the flagship programs like Taking Parliament to the People, our Local Government Week, and all of the other very important public participation platforms, ordinary South Africans are able to raise their issues, and depending on where the NCOP is convening these sessions, the NCOP is then able to then zone in on the issues that are unique to that particular locality, that particular province, district, and locality. But talk to us about how does the NCOP ensure that as people raise their issues, which is really its implementation. I would like to say, my humble view is that the NCOP really is, it's at the cold face of implementation, because it is able through its platforms to do effective oversight, but importantly, how is the NCOP able to ensure that as issues are being raised across these various localities, that those issues are actually addressed and that people are able to see that indeed this NCOP, this council, is working for the people through its oversight responsibility.
Now, I just want to give a few examples of concrete issues that we've been able to deal with over time. During the local government week, we were able, for instance, to raise the issue of the killing of councillors, assassinations, and related matters. But not only did we raise the issue there and get it debated on that platform, but we're also able to raise the matter at an NCOP sitting to say, look, there's this issue of the killing of councillors. Let's debate the matter and provide every party, every province, every representative, public representative, with an opportunity to add their own views and so on. Of course, as we debate in the NCOP, we're also acutely aware that it's not just the the members of parliament there who are debating the issues. But that entire debate gets aired and broadcast to millions of people, or hundreds of thousands out there, so that the issue that people are experiencing on the ground becomes the issue that is being considered and decided upon one way or the other at a platform that's meant, amongst us, to debate the matters and to consider issues that are of concern to the people. The issue, for instance, of the pit bulls that have been killing their owners and members of the public. I remember, for instance, that in recent months, a former professional soccer player in Northwest was killed by his own pit bulls. So the point that one is making here is that those kind of issues find expression in the debate at forums that are really meant to ensure that issues related to the improvement of the quality of life of people assist with these specific matters, insofar as, of course, they impact on the people as a whole. So we endeavor at the NCOP to put on the order paper issues that are real, meaningful, issues that impact on society. Of course, there are broader political issues. And these issues, these broad political issues are issues that relate, for instance, to imperialism. As Lenin said, imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. And what people like Kwame Nkrumah had to say about colonialism and imperialism and the need for Africa to unite. So I'm saying that there are also very broader issues, political matters, that links very well to the matters that one has been talking about, experiences of people at a local level. So we discuss not just to ensure that the issues do not get ignored, that they get addressed insofar as they affect communities and so on, but we also discuss with the view of ensuring that we nationally make an impact in addressing our own issues as South Africans. That we discuss in such a way that we also seek to change the situation that faces the peoples of Africa. We also discuss with the view of ensuring that we impact positively on creating a situation internationally that is more conducive to the advancement of an international progressive agenda, whether in relation to climate change or on many other similar issues.
Indeed. Chairperson, you talk about the importance of creating these platforms where very critical issues of development issues, transformation issues, burning issues in communities are being discussed. How does the NCOP then ensure that with the commitments, the undertakings that are made by the executive, because obviously these platforms also create space for members of the executive, the relevant members of the executive, to come through on that particular day and participate and make commitments as to how they will address those issues. And as stated earlier, obviously sometimes you'll find that it's an issue that requires perhaps, say, the three spheres to work cooperatively together. Sometimes it is an issue that can be addressed by a specific line department, obviously through the leadership of that particular minister. But what are the systems that are being put in place to ensure that as the commitments are being made, after the conversation has taken place, after the debate has taken place, the issue has been discussed, are there systems in place to ensure that within a specific time frame that that particular ministry is able, or that particular leader of the executive members, the executive is able to address the issue and then report back to that particular community who felt that that issue was quite urgent to address?
There are mechanisms in place, broadly, mechanisms are in place. And secondly, our approach to ensuring accountability is not informed by some vindictiveness.
Absolutely.
An attempt at embarrassing the ministers and government and so on. Our approach is really based on, firstly, ensuring that government present to Parliament government programs that will be pursued in the year or in the coming years. It is also based on the money that Parliament votes in, so that the programs of government are implemented. Because without resources, there will be no implementation of any program. We then ensure that Parliament, having passed these laws, because they become laws, the programs become part of the law as well as the budget, that these are pursued by simply ensuring that there's scrutiny and examination of the implementation of all these programs, and ensuring that the money that is made available is efficiently utilized. So our approach is a very practical one. So we say, where are we in government? In an ongoing way, we say, where are we in the programs, implementation and realization of the programs? Where are we in relation to money spent? And if there are difficulties, we seek to find out what is that's being done to address those difficulties, and indeed offer advice on government on how we think the work that is supposed to be done is done. In relation to the specifics, ministerial specifics, minister-specific issues, once a minister makes a commitment that is going to do X, Y, and Z, we do write to them formal letters for them to indicate how far are they with the implementation of those specific programs, or those responses that they would have promised and committed to in the sitting of the National Council of Provinces. And indeed, if there are gaps, we notify the committees in the NCOP about the responses and the issues, and expect the committees to pursue with vigor these matters. If there's no sufficient progress, we can pursue the issue through debate, through questions to the minister, and indeed questions to the deputy president as well as the president. So in an ongoing way, we're communicating we're urging them to respond to the issues, and we're realistic to ensure that the NCOP does not just become one of the talk shops where people meet, make commitments, and make whatever wild statements, but that they are held accountable. We even visit the provinces. And this is what I've been for today, to the Vaal area in Gauteng, Sidiben, the Mfuleni municipality, where we have been to Hammarskraal in the north of Gauteng. We have been to KwaZulu-Natal recently, in Ugu district municipality. So we'll continue in a systematic way, going to all the provinces and seeking to ensure that we remain in touch on what the real issues are on the ground, and grapple with these issues together with the provincial government and municipalities, and was learning the two-way process. Learn from them in the same manner as we hope that they learn from us.
Absolutely. Chairperson, you speak about the importance of oversight and accountability and carrying out that constitutional function as the NCOP in a manner that it's not meant for antagonizing, but it is done in the interest of ensuring that we all move in tandem towards the same goal, because as much as the executive is responsible for implementing commitments and priorities, Parliament also is armed with its constitutional mandate to ensure that it does oversight, but that is done within the context of a social compact and ensuring that we all work together in unity to do so. But talk to us about, when we come back to the importance of the State of the Nation address, and obviously the NCOP is part of this joint sitting where the President will be announcing government's program of action for the year ahead. How does the NCOP locate its oversight role, particularly given the fact that this is really the last final year before we get into the national elections? This is an important year to not only reflect on the commitments from last year, which the President obviously will be doing as well, but he will be making new announcements as well. But all of that is all within the context of the 5-year plan from 2019 to where we are right now. Talk to us about how do we locate the role of the NCOP, seeing that members of both houses will be there to receive this program of action. But of course, from the NCOP side, in terms of the NCOP mandate, we have to then be able to look at that in a cascaded manner to look at how that those priorities will then find. Obviously, we know that there's going to be State of the Province addresses, there's going to be a range of other activities such as the budget and so forth. But just briefly, for the benefit of our viewers, talk to us about how does the NCOP take these priorities and make sure that these issues from an oversight perspective also find expression across the various platforms of the important oversight and accountability platforms of the National Council of Provinces throughout the year.
The State of Nation address, I mean, is very, very important in that it will give us a feedback on how the government has been grappling with the issues that were raised in previous State of the Nation addresses. It will outline the challenges and response to these challenges. It will point out the programs to be implemented going forward. It will speak to the question of the financial resources that made available to ensure that there's actual implementation of the programs. I'm sure I expected to speak to national issues, to continental issues, and indeed to international type issues that impacts on South Africa. When the State of the Nation address is delivered, it doesn't just end with us as members of the NCOP in the joint sitting, noting the state of the nation address issues. But we do summarize these issues and ensure that they become part of our ongoing work. In other words, we make them to be part of our own program. And so the debates, the questions, the committee discussions and so on will also take the State of the Nation address into account. So the State of the Nation to us is not just some abstract address. It's an address that points us to key issues that needs to be followed up going into the future. So we practicalize them, these issues, and make sure that they become part of the overall work that we'll be grappling with going into the future.
Indeed. Talking about state of readiness, Chairperson, for hosting a very successful State of the Nation address this evening when the President delivers his address. As we know, there have been some information that has been out there in terms of some parties that have indicated that they are intending to disrupt this year's State of the Nation address for whatever reasons they have put forth. What systems have been put in place to ensure that the President is able to deliver his address in a dignified manner and that South Africans are able to receive the State of the Nation address and hear those announcements, receive those announcements from the President in terms of what plans are being put in place to take the country forward? So what systems have been put in place in a nutshell, to make sure that there's no disruption?
Let me start by saying that we are very, very concerned. We do worry about a culture of disruption as being pursued by certain individuals in Parliament. And this worry is shared, this concern is shared by other role players, whether independent from Parliament. I've heard people speaking about this. Whether in the Commonwealth CPSA setting, people are very worried about this culture of disruption, this culture of threats. So we are equally concerned. But we think that the way to approach this problem is first and foremost to rely on the rules of Parliament. The rules of Parliament. Secondly, to rely on the responsibility that each and every member of Parliament carries, that of ensuring the dignity and the decorum of the House. We do have a stance, and our position is that we should be firm when dealing with these problems as and when they arise, but that we should also be fair. Fair in the sense that we should not be seen to be stifling any view from being being heard
Very important.
and being heard, being raised and so on. So we're saying that overall, all of us have a responsibility to ensure that SONA becomes a success. So we'll do everything and anything in our power to ensure that the State of the Nation address succeeds, and that and just to emphasize that there are avenues open. If anybody wants to debate, air their views and articulate their opinions and so on, display their attitude and so on, there are days set aside for debate. So each political party has an opportunity. Each MP has an opportunity to debate the issues on an open platform, to criticize, to make suggestions, and to articulate whatever they want to say in a platform provided by Parliament.
Indeed. Chairperson, that's where we have to leave it for now. I'm sure there will be other opportunities to further unpack, possibly even beyond the President's address, those commitments and how the NCOP will process those issues. But we have to leave it there for now. I'd like to thank you very much for making the time to be with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
That was the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, and Dr. Amos Masondo was just really talking to us about the mandate of the National Council of Provinces and how, of course, the State of the Nation address is not only a platform for announcing for NCOP members to be part of the joint sitting to receive the program of action, but also the NCOP has got programs and systems in place to ensure that oversight is being carried out, to ensure that those commitments are actually being implemented. Do stay tuned. We do have a few more guests who are lining up to come and talk to us about the state of readiness to convene this evening's session. Do stay tuned.
Building our great South African nation together.
The mace is a symbol of the authority of the National Assembly. It is carried into the chamber by the Sergeant-at-Arms and announces the arrival of the Speaker of the National Assembly. It signifies that the House is formally in session and that its proceedings are official. Standing at 1.196 meters and weighing 9.86 kilograms, the current mace is a representation of South Africa's democracy. The new mace was designed to reflect the history, tradition, diversity, culture, and languages of South Africa. The mace also celebrates the country's natural beauty, its plant and animal life, and its rich mineral resources. Each element was carefully chosen with this in mind. Though it appears to be a single unit, the mace was made and fitted in sections on an aluminium core. At the head of the mace is an 18-karat gold drum covered in springbok skin, which in turn is attached to the drum by 18 buttons made from South African minerals and gemstones. On top of the drum rests a book made from gold on which, in raised text, is an extract from the preamble to the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. The drum features images of South Africans going about their daily business. Some of the depictions that can be seen on the drum is a miner, saxophonist, machinist, architect, builder, soccer player, forklift driver, scientist, teacher, doctor, domestic worker, a woman with a baby on her back and a hoe in her hand, a woman driving a tractor, and children reading and working. The images are designed to look like African woodcuts and were chiseled by hand to create a three-dimensional look. The drum is fitted on a gold neck illustrated with dancing sand figures. 3 platinum discs in decreasing size connect the head of the mace to the shaft. The shaft is made of aluminium and inlaid with cherry and box wood. The top of the shaft is encircled by an 18-karat gold band with 6 black and 6 white half-carat diamonds set into it. Beneath this is the South African coat of arms in full-color enamel. 2/3 from the top of the mace is a beaded South African flag. The white on the flag is represented by 800 platinum or white gold beads, the yellow by 70 yellow gold beads, and the red, green, blue and black by colored glass beads. Before the mace tapers to the end is another gold band of 6 black and 6 white diamonds, and then another band of platinum. The shape of the mace recalls the Nobgiri, an African symbol of defense, authority and leadership. The drum, which forms the head of the mace, is an expression of the African tradition of using drums to call people together for a meeting. It's also a reminder that South Africa's transition to democracy was achieved through dialogue, with Parliament serving as a place where many different voices are heard. Gold is one of the core ingredients in the mace. Archaeological finds show that gold has been mined and used in African culture for centuries. Its use in the mace symbolizes the country's natural wealth and also the ancient indigenous gold mining traditions. The open book on top of the drum symbolizes the Constitution of South Africa and the principles around which Parliament functions. The Constitution is the supreme law of the country and plays a central role in the development of a new South Africa. This is echoed in its position at the top of the mace. The writing on the open pages of the book is the first line of the preamble to the Constitution in each of the 11 official languages and 1 line from an extinct Khoisan language. The platinum rings found at intervals along the shaft of the mace recall the rings worn by Ndebele women. Under the first set of platinum rings, at the base of the drum, is an image of 2 Khoisan taken from the Linton Stone, a world-famous example of South African rock art dating back at least 20,000 years. The image is a symbol of social interaction, coherence, and interdependence, all elements needed for a country such as South Africa to grow and prosper. The result of all this is a mace that recalls the past, mirrors the present, and looks forward to the future.
You are watching the build-up to the State of the National
Are you able to open
Address
it
on
for me?
Parliament TV. Thank you for tuning in. Each of the Houses of Parliament is governed by a set of rules,
Can you switch it to
and the
this
joint sitting today will be governed by the joint rules. I am joined by the Secretary to the National Assembly, Mr. Masibulelo Qaso, who is responsible for providing procedural advice to the National Assembly. Mr. Qaso, good morning and welcome.
No, thank you so much, and good morning to the viewers.
Yes. And then, Mr. Qaso, what is the role of the Secretary of the House in supporting presiding officers to ensure that the SONA runs in a dignified manner?
The role of the Secretary to the House is manifold, really. We firstly need to make sure that the meeting place for the presiding officers and members is conducive to conduct business. We have to make sure that all the necessary instruments that they need prior even to the sitting itself are in place, whether you talk about what we call the agenda for the day, and to ensure that members are properly briefed. Especially when we talk about SONA, there are various elements to SONA. Whether you're talking about sitting arrangements, whether you're talking about the format of the sitting itself, the secretary to a house or the secretaries to the houses are there to serve the members of parliament, are there to serve the presiding officers, and make sure that they are able to conduct their business. So to create a conducive environment for members to conduct their business. And of course, secretaries to houses are are your chief procedural advisors. So we advise on matters of procedure, the application of the rules, how the rules relate to the Constitution, because the Constitution obviously is the mother of all, if I may put it that way, whether it's a law or acts of parliament or the rules of the houses, those must be in harmony with the Constitution, because the Constitution empowers us to regulate our own business. So the secretary to a house is really responsible for a range of areas to make sure, but the key for us is that these houses must be able to conduct their business as provided for in the Constitution.
And another question is, what is the main objective of the joint rules, and how do the rules assist in ensuring the decorum of the House and ensuring that proceedings of the House are run smoothly?
Indeed, as I indicated, the Constitution gives Parliament the power to regulate internal affairs, in a sense, to formulate rules. So you have rules of each house, so that when the National Assembly meets, the rules that are applicable there are rules of the National Assembly. When the National Council of Provinces meets on its own, the rules applicable there are rules of the NCOP. But when we meet like we shall be meeting today, the rules applicable are joint rules. So there are rules that are designed to regulate joint business. Now, in those rules, you have sections or rules that deal with the extent of the application of these rules. Who do they apply to? They apply to members, they apply to the president, and they apply to other members of cabinet. And you have rules of debate. How should members conduct themselves when they are debating matters in joint sittings? But you also have rules that deal with order in public meetings or order in joint sittings. Of course, those are the rules that would also be applicable today. Because today we're not debating, but there will be elements of those rules that still find application today. Of course, the joint rules go further than those two elements that I've mentioned. You have your committee system in the joint rules and the legislative process in the joint rules. So the joint rules are there, or the rules of Parliament broadly, are there to regulate the business of Parliament, how Parliament must regulate its business so that business is conducted in an orderly fashion. And of course, it is expected that everyone will abide by the rules.
Still on the regulation part of it, these rules, the rules of the NCOP and the rules of the National Assembly, are they integrated, or are they more or less the same, or is it does each house have a different set of rules?
There will be areas of areas that are common in both houses, but you must remember that the two houses have different sets of mandates. That's a council of provinces, so even the voting procedure is not the same. So elements such as your voting procedure would be different. But when it comes to debate, rules relating to debate, so there will be similarities there. Order in public meetings, there will be similarities there. So, but your rules will still reflect the differences between the two houses in terms of their constitutional mandates.
Now, what have been the key challenges with regard to enforcing the decorum, particularly when there are major disruptions to the proceedings of the House?
You know, when we started off in, shall I say, maybe in the third parliament or fourth parliament, there were concerns that the rules do not provide for a lot of things. Now, the sources of parliamentary procedure are various. You have the Constitution, obviously, which is your supreme law, and you have laws such as your Powers and Privileges Act and various other laws that would find application in parliamentary procedure. Then you have the rules, but you also have conventions and practices. These are things that have developed over time. For instance, bowing, when a member comes in, you bow. Calling a member honorable, that has always been a convention. And sometimes not to call a member by name or first name. So a lot of those things were conventions. But then there was a sense that from some members that these things must be reflected in the rules. And of course, that was done to some extent. But the key thing is that the rules cannot provide for every eventuality. The rules must be broad enough, to some extent encompassing, so that they are able to deal with other matters that are not reflected. So initially, the issue was the rules do not provide for everything. But then later on, the issue was really sometimes members, for whatever reason, understand the rules differently. But I think what is important and what assists in terms of enabling Parliament to conduct its business is when the rules that are agreed by members are adhered to by the members. They are applied and they are adhered to. And I think once you get to that point, then Parliament is enabled to conduct its business. Because remember, this is the Parliament of the people. These are leaders of the people. And we are here to serve the leaders. We provide the infrastructure for the rules. They agree to the rules. Of course, we advise legally and procedurally. We craft the rules, but these rules are agreed to by members, and therefore they are binding largely to members. And therefore, I think everyone would really have an expectation that if you have agreed democratically to the rules, then the rules must be complied with. I'm emphasizing democratically because what I'm trying to convey is that it could very well happen that member A did not necessarily agree to the rules, but this is a democratic forum where things are agreed to democratically. Once they are agreed to, of course, the expectation ought to be that the rules will then find application and they would find acceptance among members.
As I understand, it means that the rules are there to cover a wider scope of the operations of Parliament itself,
Of course.
not individual occurrences.
No, not individual occurrences. But if you talk about rules of debate, those rules, whether you're debating Human Rights Day, or you're debating State of the Nation address, or anything else that serves before Parliament for debate, those rules would find application. Yeah.
Oh, yes. And then now, what provisions are made in the rules to address major disruptions of the running of the House?
Look, we have rules that deal with when there's grave disorder in the House. We have rules that provide for a member to be asked to leave the House when there is disorder, where the presiding officer is of the opinion that the member is either disregarding the authority or the presiding officer acting in contempt or in a disorderly manner. So the rules empower a presiding officer to order the member to leave the chamber. And of course, it has always been expected that once you reach that point, then the member would leave the chamber. However, in the event that a member then refuses to leave the chamber, as has happened before, there are then rules that are meant to enable the House to conduct its business and for the member to be enabled.
assisted.
Yes, to be enabled to leave the chamber. And of course, there are steps there that are taken. So the first step is for the speaker or the chair to say, member, please leave the chamber. And the next step is for the sergeant at arms or the usher of the Black Rod to be invited to enable the member, to assist the member to leave. If they refuse, then you have parliamentary protection services that are then invited to assist a member to leave. But the rules also make provision, the joint rules also make provision in the event of violence in the House. We always hope that never happens. Where there's a threat to the safety of people in the House and there's grave disorder. So the rules do make provision for the security services to assist in terms of the Powers and Privileges Act of Parliament, which empowers the security services to act in those instances. But as I say, that is really your extreme end of the process. And we always wish and hope that it never gets to that point.
Now, what mechanisms are available to the presiding officers, particularly as enabled by the rules?
Well, I mean, that is one mechanism to get a member to be assisted to leave the chamber. Because once the authority of the presiding officer is undermined, once the authority of a chairperson of a meeting, forget about parliament, but of a meeting is undermined, then you are going to have problems in that meeting because people will speak as they wish for whatever length of time. Even when the chair says, now your time is up, they'll continue speaking. So hence you have a rule that says that even if in the opinion of the presiding officer, a member is acting in contempt or deliberately disregarding the authority or acting in a disorderly fashion, then the presiding officer has the power to say, honorable member, please leave, because you are restoring order. That's not a disciplinary action on the part of the presiding officer. It's restoration of order in the sitting. Hence, a member would then leave the House for that day, for that day's proceedings, and leave the precincts. And the next day, the member is back in proceedings because the whole idea is to maintain order so that Parliament is able to conduct its business. And of course, where there are extreme cases that are viewed to be interfering with the privileges of other members or the privilege of the House itself to conduct its business, that is where you then invoke disciplinary processes. Now, what are the kind of privileges that are applicable where members are prevented from conducting their business, for instance? Members are there to conduct business and for some whatever reason, members are prevented from doing that. That is a breach of privilege of the members. Because remember, we have freedom of speech. The Constitution has made provision for freedom of speech in parliamentary proceedings. So members are not held liable for what they say, or for what they do, or what they produce. But the Constitution is clear that freedom of speech is regulated by the rules, subject to the rules of procedure. So hence you now would have rules that say you can't insult another person, despite the freedom of speech that you have, but your freedom should not extend to you interfering with the integrity or the dignity of another. So as an individual member, you have parliamentary privileges, parliamentary privileges. So does the other member. And therefore, what it means is that your privileges must be respected, but the other's privileges must also be respected. So your privileges do not trump the other's privileges. So you can't act in a manner that begins to violate the privilege of others. And hence, the point I was trying to make was that if it gets to that point, you then talk discipline. But earlier on, I was just talking about the maintenance of order. So when a member is being asked to leave the chamber, that's really not a disciplinary thing. It's the speaker exercising, trying to maintain order in the proceedings. So discipline would maybe take the form of your House and Privileges Committee, where there will maybe punitive measures that are taken, sanctions that are taken, or in some instances your Ethics Committee that would deal with those issues, or the Disciplinary Committee. In the NA, we do have such a committee. Yeah.
So, is there a booklet or a draft where all these rules are stipulated?
Yeah, no, there are rules. Rules provide for that, and of course, I'm the secretary to the National Assembly. I'll speak more about that. The rules of the National Assembly do make provision for a whole range of those activities, and I'm sure that the rules of the council as well do make provision for that, and even in joint sittings, those rules will find application. Yeah.
Okay, now, and then how has the NA table prepared itself to ensure that the SONA 2023 runs smoothly?
We've done everything that is supposed to be done. The venue is ready. We've had walkabouts, and there will continue to be such even today. The sitting is arranged for the members. Sound continues to be tested. We have circulated the rules to the honorable members. We have briefed our political leadership. I'm talking about the program committee, the WIPARI. So the matter now is really with the honorable members of parliament to be there this evening and as guided by the rules to enable the sitting to proceed. But to the extent possible, remember joint sitting is a joint undertaking. So it's not just the NA table, the NCOP table as well. So we've worked quite well together, led by the Secretary to Parliament, because when it comes to joint activities, then the Secretary to Parliament would be the final authority administratively. Of course, even with the houses, he is, but I'm now talking in the context of your joint business. Yeah.
So, still on the issue of the preparedness. So, since we are not in the old National Assembly, we are here in the City Hall. Has all the logistics and everything been prepared to accommodate for the smooth running and everything?
No, we have. I mean, well, the good thing is that this venue can accommodate all the members. Your seating arrangement is not ideal for a sitting of parliament. It's more or less chairs like this, or seats like this. And, but all the members at least will be able to be seated in the venue. The gallery is not as big as the NA chamber gallery. You have up to 264 seats. And to the extent possible, all has been done to ensure that this sitting is able to run and to be smooth from our side. But as I have said, and as I would like still to say, this is a sitting of members of parliament. And therefore, at come 1900 hours, it will be members of parliament who must then, as guided by the rules, enable this sitting to continue. Yeah.
And for all this, for all these other years, there's always been an imbongi, a person who's doing the traditional poem, the heroic poem of a parliament or the leader and so on. We have the imbongi in this year's sitting.
Yes, we have imbongi, Sizulu, will be the language for this year. And Imbongi is here, ready to do what they do best. And yeah, so that's a tradition that it's an old tradition now, I would say, because it started in the democratic parliament and it has continued. So it still continues. So even today, you have Imbongi, so that you always have to carry the traditional aspect of our society. That's number one, but also the inclusive nature of our society. You then have to rotate in terms of the language groups.
In terms of the language.
Yes, of the languages of our society, and which is a fantastic intervention as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if it's done elsewhere, but certainly it's good for the Republic.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kaso. I am sure our viewers have learned something about the procedures and the rules governing the joint sitting today. Thank you for your time, and
Pleasure.
then enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Pleasure.
And then we will be back after this.
President Cyril Ramaphosa will deliver his State of the Nation address to the joint sitting of the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces on Thursday, 9 February 2023 at 7 p.m. The President calls this joint sitting of the Houses of Parliament to set out the government's key policy objectives and deliverables for the year ahead. During SONA, the President also highlights achievements, flags challenges, and outlines interventions that will be undertaken to unlock development interventions for the coming financial year. The presiding officers of Parliament invite you to be part of the SONA 2023 by tuning in live across Parliament's broadcast and multimedia platforms, Parliament Channel 408 on DSTV, YouTube or social media, and join the conversation using hashtag SONA 2023. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better.
Hello, I'm Isihle Mgili. I'm a creative strategist, writer, and involved in 16 Lotoli's editorial division. I focus mostly on content writing. The government as a whole needs to start coming with quite strong strategies that will assist with the electricity issue. As we all know, it's something that is not going to, quite frankly, is not going to go away. So I think government just needs to start sitting down and looking at strategies that are more firmer than the ones that we have, so that small businesses don't start crippling. And in the past few months, a lot of small businesses have been shutting down, and we have hopes that the gallery and the cafe can still remain, right? Because we think it plays a critical role in the community. So I think the president needs to engage those sort of things in terms of like the small SMMEs, the people at the grassroots levels, in terms of how do we get them still operating and not left behind.
Jordan. I run a restaurant here in Langa, King Libagale Street. My restaurant name is Jordan Ways of Cooking. We started back in 2018. It's been 5 years now. As the COVID-19, now that is over, now we have a big problem with load shedding. Load shedding really affects the business because I had to cut shift for staff. Once it's load shedding, there's no business. Food also gets spoiled in my storage areas because there's load shedding. So after load shedding, there's petrol, fuel prices are high. Every profit is going to that, basically. So the business is struggling. The people are hired to make bread out of the business. They are struggling to make bread as well. So that is the main problem that we have now. In the operations, you know, once it's load shedding, everything stops. Everything stops. People will sit down or go home, or there's no customers. I mean, even the car wash, we're using pressure pipes, everything just stops because of load shedding. And the petrol price as well, it's really, really high, you know, so we're struggling. Most, I would like to invite the president to come at Jordan Ways of Cooking and have dinner with us and all the members of the parliament to join us so we can discuss these issues. What we want to do here in Langa, or most people that I know, we need business spaces where the youth can be able to work and do business without paying rent, because load shedding is affecting our businesses. The petrol price is high, everything is high. So at least if we can have those business spaces that government can provide us, things will be a little bit easy and we can be more creative. I think that's the right part.
Mr. Lechisa Tsinodi was re-elected the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly in the 6th Parliament of the Republic of South Africa in 2019, his second term as Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. He has more than 25 years as a public representative, including roles in both the legislative sector and the executive. Mr. Tsinodi served as Deputy Minister of Rural Development and Land Reform from October 2011 and then as Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs from July 2013 until the May 2014 elections. From 1999 to 2004, he served as member of the Executive Council responsible for local government and housing in the Free State Provincial Government. A member of Parliament since 1994, Mr. Tsinodi served in the following committees: Portfolio Committee on Constitutional Development and Local Government, the Portfolio Committee on Housing, the Ad Hoc Committee in Represented Political Parties, the Special Ministerial Committee on the Transformation of the Independent Development Trust, IDT, the Special Ministerial Committee on Removing Obstacles to Housing Delivery, the Special Ministerial Political Committee on the White Paper on Local Government, and the Interministerial Committee on HIV/AIDS.
Joining me now is the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Lechisa Tsinodi. A good day, Deputy Speaker, and welcome to Parliament TV.
Good day, sir, and good morning.
Yes. You have been in Parliament for 2 terms now. What are some of the developments and transitions that the institution has undergone in the last 10 years? What have been your most